What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for your Overwatch massive news roundup for you today. Ton of stuff to get into. First up, Role Lock. Made an entire video dedicated to compiling different evidence put through to suggest this is something that's coming to Overwatch. Be sure to check out that video, as it has more in it than I'll have time to discuss here. But Slasher has followed up on that original leak tweet to divulge a further breadcrumb of detail that has massive implications. This is a clip from the Untitled Esports podcast.
I had sources to tell me that I am been told to expect major changes to Overwatch. Like all the things that I've been complaining about almost every day and every week for the last 2 years. I think I brought this up on last week's show. Sources do tell me that major changes are going to be coming to Overwatch, and they might even be coming to Overwatch League first. So while they implement them into the game, before they even implement them into the ranked mode, they might be putting them into the Overwatch League as a way to showcase off the major changes to the game before they put them into the base game, which I think would be kind of crazy. But it seems like Blizzard is actually getting together in terms of fixing the game.
Now, I know a lot of you ask, who the heck is Slasher? Why should we trust him? Well, he's a guy who just has a long history in esports, a ton of connections, and with that, he's broken a ton of leaks. Most recently, last week, he leaked out that the Overwatch League Grand Finals this year will be in Philadelphia, which then just got confirmed this week. When Slasher goes out and says he's got sources indicating a particular way, I take it seriously. And now, I think, based on hearing him say this out loud, my previous video on this subject, I have even more confidence in, because Slasher's list of demands to changes to fix Overwatch are quite high. He's speaking as if he's impressed with the amount of stuff that they're willing to put in, and it's right around the corner. Now, to the point of it going into Overwatch League first, I think also seems likely to me for a couple reasons. Well, here's a bit of evidence that my boy Maza from the Overwatch podcast sent me that seems to indicate a little bit of an industry leak. It might seem mundane, but look closely. Monte Cristo styling on the Outlaws for having an 0-7 stage, things going horribly for them, they do not look good in the GOATS meta, and Linkzr, who is one of the best Widowmaker players in the entire world, who doesn't get to play Widow due to 3-3 being the only comp you really can run most of the time, sends him a little heart, and Monte says, chin up, it will be better after the break. Whoa, Monte, why would you ever assume that? Better after the break? Jeff Kaplan and Aaron Keller said they're happy with the balance, and there's no balance changes scheduled. I know there's about a month before the next stage of Overwatch League comes, but if there's going to be balance changes to force GOATs out of the meta, they need to be coming now, because the devs try to make sure that there's time for the pros to have experience on a patch rather than just dumping it on them. But with no patch scheduled, man, that seems kind of fishy, don't you think? It's almost as if Monte Cristo knows that Linkzr's going to be able to play Widowmaker and the DPS heroes he trained for next stage. Now, to the point of it going to Owl first, I wouldn't be happy to see that, but it makes sense to me for this reason. Blizzard is really slow to do anything. We know this. They spent 10 years on a game that they scrapped and then turned into Overwatch, okay? It's been years before they have decided to put any significant changes to the rank system, and it's only coming up now. They take forever to do stuff. But I think, with the halfway point with the Overwatch League Season 2 now, and them wanting to have the biggest momentum possible for Season 3, when teams go play at their local cities, they need DPS to be playable immediately. You've got to tear off the Band-Aid now and put Role Lock in. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be fair to institute a patch for the playoffs that puts DPS in when they haven't been relevant the entire year. That indicates to me that they want to put this into the game too, but they think it's so required for the top level meta for us to ever see damage again with the way power creep has gone with the game, that they're going to flip the switch and put the limitations and the rule set into Stage 3 before even the game has the infrastructure to run it for the rest of us. And again, alongside all of this, Slasher seems to be confident that Blizzard is fixing the game in more ways than one. This is exciting news, but I already dedicated an entire video talking about all the other stuff that we might be getting. Go check out that last video to see the other vague potential wish list that Slasher had that may be coming to fruition before long. Moving on now, we've had an event just conclude and the all-star skins are now available. However, this Redditor and many others are a bit upset that last year's Tracer and Genji skins aren't available. That's a serious feels bad, man. It seems like they're always trying to stretch the limit of what the community is willing to put up with these all-star skins. They originally had them even more expensive than they were, then they lowered the price, but then buffed the rate you farm OWL tokens, so it was like a double reduction in price, if that makes sense. But now, unlike the other skins in the events that always make a comeback, the 2018 Tracer and Genji skins are seemingly locked forever. But I'm sure if people make a big enough stink about this, Blizzard will flip the switch and allow you to purchase the old ones. I mean, what's the downside for them to do so? The only upside is the few of us that were able to secure it can feel a sense of superiority, but they're already so premium and expensive and pretty much require you to either watch OWL or dish out a pretty penny in order to get the OWL tokens paying with regular currency, that not many people are going to have them no matter what. And on top of that, the new Lucio skin doesn't come with a custom soundtrack, and it might be too much to ask to always get a new Lucio beat with a premium skin, but I gotta say, as a Lucio player, I do love changing up the different sounds. The jazzy theme is a nice change of pace, and it's something that I wish they would do more often. Although, obviously, I know it takes more work, but come on, Blizzard, you're good for it. However, there is some good news with the new All-Star update. Blizzard finally introduced a dark mode home screen, whereas last year had a blinding white screen. This one's a calm, cool blue. And while we're in the habit of nagging for things from Blizzard, I think being able to set the background screen would be something everyone would enjoy. As you can see from any of my screen caps anyway, I love dark mode. I'm on that Jay-Z all black everything. So yeah, I take this stuff seriously. It's a big deal to me. So nobody else cares. All right, moving on. Now into map news. HAVANA Unana is now live into the main game, coming in with yesterday's patch. And it's almost like we're getting two maps, actually, because the Numbani mystery has been solved. Dan Maas apologizes for it taking a few days to address, but Numbani was just deactivated for a period of time and nobody got to play it. Now it's back, so you can get full held on A and never see 2/3 of the map every time you play. Oh, goody. Next up, XQC tweeted this out, and it got quite a big response. 13,000 likes, saying he misses competing so much, having a purpose, failing and succeeding. I miss wanting it so bad that I would block out everything and everyone until I saw improvement. Thought this was an interesting tweet, especially in the context that the announcement of the HAVANA map only got 17,000 likes, which is some interesting perspective on the fame level of XQC. It's an interesting subject, and one that, unfortunately, due to time constraints in this video, one I can't get into in much depth. Thorne and Monte on Oversight in their most recent podcast, where they talked about player burnout is just sort of part of the territory with being a pro player, and interestingly enough, a guy like XQC is actually built for it, but his personality doesn't jive with the Blizzard culture in a lot of ways, and they kind of forced him out, which is interesting. He's like the reverse Shroud in that way, where they're both really talented streamers, but whereas Shroud never really seemed to have the energy to buckle down and grind, XQC actually misses the thrill of that. Meanwhile, a guy like Defran seems to be way happier just streaming. Seagull as well, to be honest, seems to be happier after leaving the pro life, which sucks for us as fans because we want to see these best players compete at the highest level and give us more entertainment value. Unfortunate. Back on a high note though, here's a Reddit theory for you. Stranger Quark thinks they may have honed in on the new Dva skin that's coming out that will, quote, break the internet, according to Jeff Kaplan. Now, I know, why should we give some random Redditor and their insane theory the light of day? I'll have you know, someone called that Hammond was going to be a hamster when everyone in the world thought he was going to be a little chimpanzee or monkey. So I'm taking Redditor seriously right now because this theory seems locked up. The evidence they give, this new K-pop group, Cherry Bullet, could be seen holding what appears to be a bedazzled Diva blaster. Doesn't even look like a regular one. Looks like it was special made, hinting that maybe the music producers and Blizzard already have a relationship there, potentially, and also the girl group will be releasing their new album before the end of May, which is the same time as the anniversary event goes live, surmising that there might be a cross-promotion going on here, because we all know how popular and successful the League of Legends KDA pop song and skin set was, and I think a lot of Overwatch fans were really envious of that, so it seems like a pretty likely move. I mean, I already just assumed that the new Diva skin was going to be K-pop themed. This theory puts it even more specific to be a cross-promotion, which we already know Blizzard does all over the place with cereals and toy companies, Nerf guns, and everything. I think this would go over really well because we've already seen what Tracer would look like if dressed up like the characters from the KDA video. This is from artist Liang Xing and shows off a really cool Tracer, graffiti-fied, just like in the League of Legends music video. Last news stories for the day, we're going to talk about a quick note about ranked and as well the pro meta. As we know, recently with season 16, there's been a block on stacking above 2. You can only solo or duo. Anything above, you can't queue at GM. A few notable players have spoken out about this. Pro player for the Dallas Fuel, Zacharee, says, as much as I hate 3 stacks, ranked feels worse now, which is not the expected result, explaining that 3 stacks at least bring players that are trying. Now most games just have people who don't care, which is kind of the crazy thing about the ranked experience in Overwatch. No matter how high you go, solo queue just never has any impact. Unless there's stacks on one side or the other, competitive Overwatch Overwatch really isn't being played, most of the time anyway. So I would tend to agree, but Ml7 has a different opinion, and saying after playing Overwatch a few days in GM, since the rule with solo duo only for GM+, I can definitely say the quality of games increased, and the matchmaking doesn't feel as unbalanced as in some games in previous seasons. So, different strokes for different folks. The good news is, pro stacks won't be styling on streamers in solo queue, but the bad news is the level of play goes down, which I think is just sort of the nature of forcing solo and duo queue. Not to get into a larger debate, but if you want to raise the overall level of play, you let stacks determine the meta of ranked. If you want to have a casual time, then you stop stacks at every turn, which is what Blizzard essentially just keeps doing, and some players seem to want. But to all the pro players, you talk about boosted players in their lobbies, and while their teammates aren't as good as them, if you want solo and duo queue, you will never have good teammates. Not even at GM, because the problem pros have is they have expectations of understanding the game at a team level that just never gets implemented into a system that doesn't force you to play against teams. I mean, how are you going to learn the team game if you don't play teams? And everyone's always playing for themselves at all levels of play. It's just never going to happen, meaning that a lot of cheesy strategies and massive gaps in people's game can still exist all the way up to the high levels of play just based on personal mechanics alone. So there's my little rant on that. Last point about the pro meta, I thought this clip was incredibly interesting from the Tactical Crouch podcast. Yiska, whose articles I've signal boosted in the past, gives insight that came from friends he has with the Toronto Defiant, who explained to him the reason why aggressive goats is better on this patch despite the Lucio speed nerf going through, which is kind of unintuitive because you would assume if you can't go as fast, you can't be as aggressive. But actually it's having the opposite effect, which kind of makes sense as to why a team like NYXL is looking a lot weaker on this patch. Stage playoffs are this week, so that'll kind of help determine that. But reason being, it seems once an aggressive team gets onto you, with speed being nerfed, it's harder to run from a fight, because Lucio's ability to peel is actually better most of the time than going aggressive, despite common knowledge being that speed is for getting from A to B. More often than not, at high-level play, it's about dodging back, or more important for that anyway. But now, with it being nerfed, teams more freely can just jump on the enemy and out-mechanic them without being able to play the NYXL patented style of just parrying back constantly, waiting for Jonak to click heads on Zenyatta. An interesting development, and one of those cases that I think really goes to show how you have to think about Overwatch 3 to 6 steps in advance whenever a buff or nerf comes through. And not that I think anyone really could have predicted it. As we all start to learn how the cause and effects of the games work, I think we all can better predict how changes to the game will actually affect it before we need to test it. You know, sort of like looking at the Stage 2 patch and realizing that Goats was definitely not going to die. I didn't think was rocket science, but hey, that's just me. We covered a ton of stuff in today's video, so please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out, lets us know that you're enjoying the content, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, dank memes, and more. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.